Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be ranking all the Fnaf games that I've played so far. The only one that I haven't played is Help Wanted 2, so I'm not going to be ranking that. But I've played most of them in the mainline games except for that one. So we are going to be ranking those for the 11-year anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's. Now that is absolutely insane to think about because I would have been like 6 years old at that time playing Fnaf 2. Fnaf 2 was my very first game that I ever played. And I still have videos of it on an old YouTube channel of me playing the game. I think that version of the game was broken because you could basically just sit on the music box camera and not die. But very good memories. And I still remember the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 3. So I've been in this franchise for a very long time. I am 17 now. I started when I was 6, like I just said a couple of minutes ago. But it's absolutely crazy to think about. Absolutely insane. It felt like it went by so fast. But enough of me like going on my old person ramble. Let's rank some games. Now before you start filling up the comments with hate comments, it's not because I think Sister Location is a bad game, but once you get onto night 4 it starts feeling like a demo. I have 4 hours on this game, and most of those are attempts at night 4. I think the parts of the game that I actually did get to play are very impactful. Night 2, I think the part where you go against Funtime Freddy, that part actually has some pretty nice challenge to it, but not so much where you can't get past it and you have to have like 50 billion attempts to take hours. Now don't get me wrong, it has enough challenge to where you are going to be having a couple of attempts, but it is manageable. I think that Night 4 needs a lot of fixing, and I think it needs a lot of reworks. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but if it did, I would at least make these changes to it. I would put a stopwatch at the top of the corner where usually the hour marks are in the original 4 games, or altogether I would take a whole minute off of that because 3 minutes is a little bit much for this. I have watched countless videos on this and I still cannot get the correct pattern to get these out of here because they're completely randomized. Some of the spring locks when you first start up one of the rounds will either be on the left side or the right side instead of completely being scripted. I think the only scripted part of this level is the main arena spawn time, which helps a little bit but not enough where you can actually beat it. My closest run is 2 minutes and 50 seconds, which when I lost that, I literally just shut off the entire console and went to bed. I remember that vividly because it crushed me. I was so excited to finally beat it, and then I just randomly got jump scared. I was so pissed. Now you could say, oh, you're just bad, get better. Well, you might be right. I'm pretty sure when this game came out, most of the fans were like 12 and 13. I don't expect a 12 to 13 year old to know how to beat this. I'm 17 and I cannot do this for the life. Now that we got the one bad thing about the game out of here, we're actually going to talk about the good things. The first thing I like is I like how it actually feels like a real environment. The first couple of games you just stay in one spot, but here you can actually move around. I think that's very cool. FNAF 4, while you can move around, you can only move around to one room. In this, you can move around the whole location. That actually makes it feel more realistic. Now, I do like in the original Five Nights games where you just sit there in one room. That does make it feel a lot more claustrophobic. But I do like how you can move around. I feel like it really suits this style of game. It does make Sister Location a lot more memorable. But I gotta knock it down to last place just because of Night 4. It is nearly impossible. I literally might even argue that it might be on the same skill level as Ultimate Custom Night. Ultimate Custom Night is definitely harder than Night 4, but I feel like Night 4 definitely goes up there in difficulty. Now I want to get into the animatronics themselves. If Night 4 didn't exist, this would be one of my top games because these animatronics put a new sense of fear. Once you know what they were made for, preferably to capture people and children, it gets really fucking scary. These were not made to entertain people, these were meant to capture and kill. That is another thing I really like about this game, is that the animatronics have a lot more personality than in the last games. They're not just silent killing machines. Now, being silent can be scary when done right, but the voice actors in Sister Location nailed it. I will give it that. They nailed it. They sound sadistic, scary, and I appreciate that. I absolutely do not hate Sister Location at all. I think it's fairly good besides Night 4, but sadly, it's the lowest ranking game for me. If you have your own opinions on this game, this is completely fine. If you love this game and this is one of your favorite, that is completely fine, but this is just my opinion. Now we are on to Security Breach, probably everybody's most hated game in the franchise. Now, I'm not ranking this game lower because I hate it, because I actually really love it. None of these games on this list I hate. They're just games that are better than it and up above it. So, here it is, Security Breach. Now, this footage in the background was actually my original footage of the release day when I first got this game. I'm mostly ranking this game higher than Sister Location because of nostalgia and because I kind of just like it more. There's actually few things that I dislike about this game. The first one is there's a lot of bugs. Now, I think most of these are ironed out nowadays. I haven't played this game since my original playthrough, so that's not relevant. I don't think they're probably already all gone, the glitches. But the next thing is some characters weren't fleshed out very much. Burn Trap, we never really get anything about him anymore. Vanny, she wasn't very fleshed out. She was very sidelined in this story. In my opinion, I feel like we could have used a little less Afton or Mimic, whatever you want to call it. That's a theory for another day. But I feel like we needed more Vanny. She was on most of the promotional things, like the posters and stuff. She was in the trailers a lot. I feel like we could have used more of her. I really hope we get more of her, but I feel like this should have been her game. Now, this is a small one. I feel like this game should have been a little bit more scary. I kind of feel like most of the games nowadays are leaning more towards children, even though this game franchise was based off of horrible dark things. That's just a small complaint. I feel like nowadays Steelwool is doing a lot more better with their dark and dingy things. But those are just my small 3 complaints. I feel like the first one isn't really relevant anymore. I'm going to go back and play it probably later. I don't actually have access to this game anymore, so I'm going to have to buy it all over again. But when I play it again, I will get back to you on all the glitches. Now we're going to talk about the Ruin DLC. I'm going to count this in the Security Breach part of this video. It's going to be ranked the same, even though if it was a different ranking thing, I feel like it would be higher than Security Breach. While vastly different, I still think that it is part of Security Breach. I don't have any footage of my playthrough on it, sadly, but I did really enjoy it. That is probably one of the best parts of Security Breach is the DLC. There was nothing that I disliked about that. Now that is why it's going to probably go a lot higher than Sister Location for me, is because of the very cool DLC. I'm not sure if that's cheating, but that's probably one of the reasons why I really like this game more than Sister Location, and for nostalgia purposes. The last thing is, Ruin was a lot scarier than the base game. Next up, another thing I liked is the endings. The endings were pretty easy to get, and they felt very satisfying. Even the ones that were harder to get, it was satisfying enough to play through that you did not feel like giving up. All the YouTubes that I watched about all the endings, I really wanted them. All in the past games, the other endings, I would get one ending and then I wouldn't feel the need to grind out for the rest of them. But for this game, all the endings looked very satisfying and I wanted to see them for myself on my own screen. Something about seeing the ending on your own screen besides on a YouTube video, something about it feels a lot more satisfying to me. So 13-year-old me at the time, you can see this is my footage, 13-year-old me at the time literally grinded out the whole weekend on this game to get all the endings. This is the disassemble ending that you see in the background. It's probably one of my favorite endings. The only one that I didn't get is the Burn Trap ending, so I never got to see Burn Trap. When I buy this game again, I'm definitely going back for that because it looked very cool. I don't want to spoil too much for the rest of the video, but that ending is connected to one of my top 3 favorite games in this entire franchise, so that just makes me want to grind for it even more. Another thing that I really like about Security Breach is all of the environments feel very fleshed out. It feels like a very realistic location. No matter what, that is always going to earn a game a point in my rankings. I love when locations, characters are fleshed out. It makes everything so much more satisfying to me. I can go on for hours and hours about every single room in the Pizzaplex in Security Breach. And the next thing, all the animatronics, just like in Sister Location, have their own personalities. But since they're obviously like 10 years apart, of course this game's gonna have more fleshed out characters, and they nailed it. Just like in Sister Location, the voice actors nailed it. I cannot wait to go back and play this game as soon as possible, because even though it's very low on the list, I still love it. It's just some of the other games are higher above it because I like them more. Now here's where it gets really nostalgic. I don't really remember what we were doing at the time, but we were on our phones for whatever reason. And then, I think it was either me or my cousin. We decided to go on the App Store like any kid in 2014 or 2015 and look at the Five Nights at Freddy's section. And we thought it was a joke at first. We thought it was going to be another troll game like the Fnaf 3 troll game. But it was actually the Fnaf 4 demo. So me being very excited, I download it. I show my cousin at the time the game. And we both get really excited. And because we're little kids at the time, we play the game at lowest volume setting possible. And of course, this game being sound-based, that is very bad. So basically, we kept dying. And, you know, how any 6 and 7-year-old would probably do, we give up. And we don't play the game for about a couple of months. And on that day, we happened to be watching Markiplier's FNAF 4 gameplay. Months later, I don't know why, this might have been our 5th or 5th time watching this because we were just spam watch Markiplier. And that's where we find out that this game is sound-based. So we hop back onto our phones, download the game, the demo of course. We didn't know at the time, we thought the game was just free. So we started flying through the first night, and the second night, it took us a couple of tries though. And then we got to, I think, the third night, and I think that's where the demo stops. And we thought it was only a 3-night game, and then a couple of years later I found out, hey, it wasn't actually free. We have to pay for the rest of the nights. And that is where I played the full game on my crusty tablet in 2016, a year after the game came out. It was actually my top 1 favorite game for the longest time in the FNAF series. But you know, everything changes. I actually don't have anything bad to say about this game. I just genuinely think that there's better games above it. So we'll basically just talk about the things I actually like about it. The game feels like an actual dream. Nothing looks right. I think that was out of design. Something about the house just never looked right. I think it was later explained to be actually a testing chamber, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We're just going to go into it as if it was still a dream. I am an absolute sucker for things that just do not look right and look uncanny. And this house, the room that we're in, that is literally perfect. Perfect. Even the room makes you feel fear. 2 doors that you actually have to run over and manually shut. It's not like the first game where you can shut them both at the same time. Like one wrong move and they're getting in. The 2 doors things always bug me. And no, it's not because it's a bad mechanic and I don't like it because of the game. It's because it's unusual. And when it's unusual, it kind of makes you feel a little bit of fear. And obviously, rooms can have 2 doors, but, you know, 7-year-old me didn't know that. So it was unusual and it just felt weird. Now, the animatronic designs. I think these are some of the best in the entire franchise. A bunch of textures, rips, razor-sharp teeth. Out of all of these designs, I think Nightmare Foxy or Nightmare himself is probably my number 1 favorite out of this entire game. Foxy, obviously because it's Foxy is why it's probably my favorite. But Nightmare, on the other hand, I think it's very cool because, damn, translucent, you can see through him. You can see his endoskeleton and all the inner workings and all that cool stuff. And I might actually have based my YouTube channel name off of him, so that's one cool fact. While I think Uncanny Valley and unintentionally scary things are more frightening to me, I think that these are still frightening enough and fit the game well enough to be praised. I also really like that they explain the lore in 8-bit minigames instead of actually just showing you cutscenes. I always find it very cool when games do that. And this game brought a lot more theories. Theories keep this fandom alive. I really like the mystery surrounding this game. Like, for example, is it a nightmare? Is it real but takes place underground in a test facility? I personally like to subscribe to the theory that it's an underground test facility for obvious reasons. But this is not a theory video, so I won't get too far into that. I would like to make a theory video about that someday, but this is not today. Help Wanted, the game that I wanted to play at release, but I was too broke to afford a VR headset. But then I got one, so. But anyways, when I first ever played this game blew me away. It was all of my original favorite games that I would be too scared to play with the volume fully up on the original phones, but I could actually play it in VR now, which is more terrifying. If this video would have been made 5 years ago in 2020, this would have been my number 1 pick. But, of course, I don't hate the game like I keep saying. I just think there's games better than it. Now, there's actually nothing that I dislike about this game. I think everything is pretty good. The lore, all the replayability on all the levels, the recreations of Fnaf 1 through 5's levels, while also having its own terrifying levels and experiences. This is for sure the highlight and best FNAF game that Steelwool has produced. I know that they're recreations, but I feel like they did an astounding job at doing it. I don't like loud noises or things getting in my face, so this game was probably going to be the most scary for me, and it was. My best highlights are my, at the time, best friend. We would always hop on a call back then and try to figure out secrets about this game, which is actually in this level that I'm playing right now, the wall patterns. I didn't know which order to press them in, so I had to call him up, and sure enough, it took me like 2 minutes because I just went on night 1 where nothing attacks you, and I did it, and I got the coin out of it, which is very much worth it because that's how you progress through the game. Coins and tapes. The tapes give you very useful pieces of information towards the lore of this game, and I love listening to those. I think they implemented the tapes in a very good way. Now we're going to be talking about my favorite levels in this game. My favorite levels are probably going to be Bonnie's Parts and Service and FNAF 2. FNAF 2 was already pretty stressful, but playing it in VR was a lot more stressful because the characters actually get up in your face and it's horrifying. There is actually a second game that came out, I think, last year or the year before. I actually did a trailer reaction when the trailer came out in 2023, but I actually haven't gotten to play the game yet, so it's not going to be on this list because I don't want to rank something I haven't played yet, but when I do play it, I will actually rank it in the description. At this moment, that is actually the only FNAF game that I haven't played yet. But back to Help Wanted 1. This actually introduced one of my favorite characters, Glitch Trap. I don't know if it's Afton, and I don't know if it's the Mimic. That is still a big debate. I personally like to think it's Afton, but it could really go either or. If it is Afton, then it does take away from the FNAF 6 ending, but it's not that much of a big deal. But it might make the ending of FNAF 6 feel a little bit less impactful. That's really the only thing bad that I would have to say about this game, if that even is true in the first place. I have a lot of good memories with this game, watching Fusion Z Gamer get early access to this game and theorizing about the possibility of a multiplayer mode. Sadly, that never came to fruition. I wish it did because multiplayer on this game would be pretty cool. I would really like to see, if they ever do a Help Wanted 3, I really want them to do a multiplayer mode. It could be an ASIM survival game in VR that also has something to do with Five Nights at Freddy's, and I think that sounds really cool. Now here comes Into the Pit. I actually have a lot of positive things to say about this game. I just completed this game, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. I really like the 8-bit style. I like the storyline. This is actually based off a book, by the way. I'm not sure if anybody knows that. I'm pretty sure everybody knows. But this is your first time hearing it? Yeah, it's based off of a book. It's actually a pretty good book. I recommend reading it if you're a FNAF fan and just like to read in general. I think it's pretty good. But anyways, let's get back to the actual game. I like the whole going back into the missing children's memories, whole like storyline like that. It's not time travel. I know a lot of people thought that. I even thought that back then when the story came out, but it is not time travel. Yeah, I know, very confusing. But anyways, this is one of the FNAF games where I actually had lots of fun. And usually I'll just beat the 5 nights. But on this one, I actually had 4 playthroughs. I did the original playthrough, which got me the 1-star ending. Then I did another playthrough, 2-star ending, and the 3-star ending on my 3rd playthrough. So I actually had a lot of fun grinding out each endings, and all of them feel satisfying. Another game where I felt motivated to grind out all the endings because it was that good. Soon I'm actually going to go back and try to attempt Nightmare Mode, which is very horrifying and hard because once you die, you have to restart from the beginning. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I actually almost have the Platinum Trophy on this game. Another good thing about this is why I love it is because it's a puzzle game. I love puzzle games where you have to figure everything out to progress in the game. While playing this game, you definitely will get stuck on some parts. I definitely did on my first playthrough. But once you get past the part that you're stuck on, it's like a total breath of fresh air. And it motivates you to keep going. And this game is very lore-packed. It's still very debated if Into the Pit has any lore relevance to the actual games. I like to think it does because I think that'd be pretty cool. but I also think it can stand alone as a standalone game, as its own small little universe, and I would really like to see more of the other Fazbear Fright stories be adapted into these 8-bit games, and maybe even 3D games. I would like to see Steelwool take a crack at it. Another cool thing is you can explore other places on the map. This is kind of an open world game, so you don't just stay in one location, you can go a lot of places. It also has replayability. I think I'm actually going to go back soon for my 4th replay. That's how much I enjoyed it. Now we have the all-time best and the newest FNAF game. At this current moment, I have 32 hours on this game. That is 9 playthroughs. I enjoyed this game so much that I played it 9 times, and because I wanted to platinum. But one thing that I do want to say is on those 9 playthroughs, this game never felt boring. It never felt repetitive or anything. I enjoyed each playthrough, I enjoyed each second of it. I actually did platinum it. The platinum itself was very grueling and hard to get, but I did enjoy each playthrough, so that's a plus for me. One thing that I do want to say is the soundtrack in this game is banging. Every piece of music in this game, every ambience, amazing. All you lore people out there, this game is chucked full of lore. The character designs, some of the most uncanny and scariest ones we've seen in the franchise ever. Also played this game when it first came out, which is about a month ago, but I didn't experience any bugs, anything like that, no graphical issues. It was perfect. This game doesn't just show the evolution of FNAF as a franchise, it shows the evolution of Steelwool as a game developing company. Now it still does feel like a kid's game, but at the same time, it's still very horrifying. This is a lot scarier than Security Breach by a landslide. The story behind this game, the building itself, I think that MCM is better than the Pizzaplex. Bigger does not always mean better. MCM is a lot smaller than the Pizzaplex, I think, but I think MCM is a lot more impactful for gameplay and scares. So that's going to definitely add a lot more points to this over Security Breach. The only negative thing about this game is the character that was plastered all over the promotional items and everything like that, she's even on the poster on the game, is Jackie. She only has one chase. I would even argue to say that Vanny had more to do with Security Breach than Jackie has to do with Secret of the Mimic. I feel like she could have came back towards the end. I feel like I'd rather have seen Jackie rather than Big Top at the ending there. But that's really the only negative thing I have to say about the game. My favorite ending in this game, though, is where you get to go see the prototype FNAF 1 pizzeria. That is very cool. You can definitely see some FNAF 1 inspiration there, but I actually think it looks more like the FNAF VR Help Wanted pizzeria thing that you see before you load into a level. I think that's also based off of FNAF 1, but for some reason, the ending prototype pizzeria looks a lot more like that than the original FNAF 1 location. I don't know if that's on purpose, if that's going to be explained later, but I thought that was pretty interesting and pretty cool to think about. We also got to see the original FNAF 1 animatronics as prototypes. I think that's very cool too. People were saying that Secret of the Mimic breaks the original FNAF lore. I don't personally think it does. I think it adds some cool stuff onto it. But that's just my personal opinion. I like where the lore is going right now, and I'm really excited to see what else Steelwool has. And I really hope that Secret of the Mimic gets a DLC next, because I would really enjoy more Secret of the Mimic. FNAF 3, another game that I can say that I was there for the release. And I can vividly remember that moment when I found out that it was on the App Store and it had released. Alright, youngins, sit around the campfire because Gramps Nightmare is going to tell you a story. It's actually a pretty simple story. Anyways, me and my cousin, the cousin that actually introduced me to Five Nights at Freddy's, we were sitting on the bench in the front yard. Legit, I remember this very vividly. She then invited her friend over. Her friend actually only lived down the street. It was in walking distance. They were basically neighbors. But this was like a sundown town, so there was kind of a huge gap. But anyways, her friend came over, and all three of us, were very big fans of Five Nights at Freddy's. And we had found out from her that Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the demo specifically, because we were broke like freaking elementary schoolers. But anyways, we found out that FNAF 3 had came out. We all hopped on. The only electronic in the device that we had access to was a broken tablet. So we download the FNAF 3 demo, and we're all taking turns, and we wanted to know on the first night why nothing was happening. And it actually is because on the first night, nothing happens. Springtrap is not in the building until night 2. So you basically get a free night to learn all the mechanics and stuff like that. But it was only the demo, so we only got a free night where Springtrap actually does stuff. And me being the Fnaf god I am, I actually beat night 2 the first time because we were all taking turns. I was the first to beat night 2 with Springtrap. I got my bragging rights as the king of Five Nights at Freddy's in that little group, at least like 3 elementary schoolers. But yeah, I was the youngest and I beat it, so got my bragging rights. But yeah, just a short little story, but now let's talk about what I actually really like about this game. I like how grimy and like disgusting it feels. The first 2 games, the locations are very cleaned up. I know the FNAF 1 kind of has like spider webs in the office, but it's not really as dingy as the FNAF 3 office. You can see it's all disgusting and burned up. I'm a sucker for weathered things. Like if it has any dirt on the walls, it's very like just adds aging and very realistic tones to the game. And this is the first time we ever saw William Afton in the flesh. Even if we didn't know that was his name at the time, this is the first time we saw him outside of an 8-bit minigame. A lot of people complain about his jump scare. I actually don't mind it. I think it's actually pretty cool. But that's just the really one complaint about other people. I don't actually have any complaints about this game. I think this game fucking rules. It's actually one of the easier games in the franchise. All you really have to do is keep Springtrap in one place with the audio lures. I actually just found that out recently, and that's how I beat my recent playthrough on the game. I don't know how I beat Night 2 because that was like 10 years ago. So if they do ever come across this video, I still want you guys to know, the both of you, I know you're listening to this, I am the king of Five Nights at Freddy's. The king of Five Nights at Freddy's. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk, and I really love this game, so it's going up in the list. Now we move into the top 3. Now, here's another story of how I started playing this game. My first game was actually FNAF 2, and then I played this game. I got this game on the App Store, one of the first full games that I actually had bought for $5. I think it would have been $5 back then, maybe $3, I don't know. I actually bought this game at a Denny's when I was like 6 years old, so that's pretty cool. And after we got out of that Denny's, I demanded to go over to my grandma's house to see my cousin so we can play FNAF 1. And yeah, that sparked an argument about who did the bite of 87. Little did we know at the time we would both be wrong in a sense, because this game does not take place in 1987. As a matter of fact, nobody actually knows. There's speculations of when it could take place, but nobody knows the for sure answer. There's absolutely nothing that I dislike about this game. I think this game does everything well, and it is a core memory of my childhood. The ambience, the atmosphere, everything is done perfectly. And nothing can compare to the fear that you felt when your power level reached 0%. Absolutely nothing can match up to that. It's absolutely crazy to think how this 11-year-old mobile game would still be a big piece of my life 11 years later, but here we are. Things that I do like is I think the gameplay still holds up today, and I think there's a lot of strategy. As you can see, I'm doing the strategy where you keep Freddy on the first show stage camera. I think that works very well. If I would have known that back then, that would have made this game so much easier. The doors are a very good mechanic. The door lights are also a very good mechanic. But don't use them too much like I did in this playthrough. I actually already beat this game. This is just footage that I filmed for this video alone. But anyways, you can see I'm actually at 6% power in this playthrough, and I actually don't win, sadly. But the power is a very good mechanic because it can make sure that the game's not too easy, but it's still very balanced where it is winnable. This is actually the only Five Nights game where I actually beat night 1 through 6. I still hold this game very close to my heart, but there are 2 games that are in fact better than it. In my opinion, at least. Last thing I want to talk about is the actually scary visuals on the cameras. There is actually a memory that I have of Bonnie in the parts and service room camera staring with no eyes, and it scared the absolute shit out of me. It scared me so much that I can actually remember throwing the phone under the bed. Like literally putting it under the bed. So the game is scary, it's atmospheric, it's balanced, and at the same time very memorable. So I really like this. But these 2 next games hold a lot more space in my heart. So let's get to those now. Alright, this was a very tough choice. I didn't know if I was going to put this in first or second, but I think I'm going to put it in second just because I think I like the next game after this just a little bit more. But if you would have asked me 11 years ago, I definitely would have put this as my number one pick. This game basically takes the fear and stress of the last game and amps it up a lot more. With the last game, you only had to deal with probably 4 animatronics and 5, maybe if he pops up, which is Golden Freddy. But this time, you have to deal with a whopping 15 animatronics. That is absolutely crazy. This is actually one of the only games where I have footage of younger me playing this game. But let's roll the clip. Squeaker alert. It's gonna sound completely different, obviously, because I'm older. 8 years older to be exact. But yeah, let's just roll the clip.
Fnaf 2. In my first night, I did not get through the second night or the first night because my cousin was playing and she clicked a new game.
Yes, true story. My cousin actually reset my progress on the game, so I was very, not pleased. But wow, that was a nostalgia trip right there. I thought I would never see that clip again until I found it a couple years ago, and it's very funny. I'm not gonna give the channel name, but if you ever find the channel, congratulations to you. This for me is probably the scariest game in the franchise, at least in my opinion. It's the most memorable, it's my favorite office in the entire franchise, and the mechanics are new and fresh. I never would have thought you would get a Freddy head to put on to hide yourself from the animatronics. That automatically gives it 5 more points. Another cool mechanic is the music box. I know sometimes it can be annoying on the later nights, but it's still a pretty cool mechanic. And also another thing that I really like about this game is it feels very vintagey. None of the other games have that vintage feeling. It actually feels like a real entertainment place that you would see in the 80s, so that's another 5 points. Another thing is that it has a lot of replayability in the sense of custom night. Custom night has a bunch of different challenges that you have to beat. I actually beat a couple of them. As you can see, you get the things on your desk. I haven't completed all of them, so I'm definitely going to be going back and trying those. Another thing that makes it into my top 3 and gives this second place is the fact that it's still hard and challenging, but still very beatable at any skill level. Once you learn the strategy with the mask, you're basically beating every single night. You might have to take a couple attempts, but it's nothing that is going to take hours or even years, like Night 4 on Sister Location, for example. This is why FNAF 2 is so high and Sister Location is so low. And now for the simplest reason of why I really like this game is because, of course, it's nostalgic. It's the first FNAF game I ever played, but it is second place. I think this next game is just a little bit better in terms of gameplay and fear tactics. As a matter of fact, let's get onto that right now. The final game. First place goes to, drumroll please, yes, FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator is actually my favorite game, and it's actually not because of nostalgia, because I wasn't even in the community at that time. I actually stepped away for a little bit at the time, and FNAF 6 released, and I actually didn't play it until 2020. The only thing that I'd have to complain about this game is, I wish there was more, because this is one of my favorite games in the entire franchise. I really like the whole tycoon element of this game. I like that it mixes the tycoon and night modes like the older Five Nights games, and it creates an entirely new experience. And it has a lot of lore. We're going to get into that soon. Another reason of why this is my first place pick is it's probably the scariest game in the franchise for me. It's like FNAF 2 where you shine your flashlight, but when you shine your flashlight in this game, you can't see anything. You have to rely on what you hear. You either hear some type of clanking when they first come to your vent, and that's when you immediately have to shine your flashlight, and then you're going to hear more noises like clanking when they go away. With one animatronic, it's not that hard, but in the later nights, to get the completion ending, you have to beat 4 animatronics. Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby, Scrap Trap, and Lefty, which are some of my favorite designs in the entire franchise, besides Scrap Trap. I don't think he's a bad design, but I think Springtrap's design is a lot more iconic and better. All the other games are more stressful, but this game, while still having stress, it is very horrifying. The first night, you just get used to the mechanics. There's no animatronics to kill you, because after the first night is where you get thrown into the salvage. You have to salvage an animatronic to get some money, or you can throw it back into the alleyway. But if you don't proceed with the salvage, you don't get any money, and the animatronic will not attack you. That sounds like a good thing, but if you're a completionist like me, you can't get the completion ending. And trust me, you're really going to want that because it is probably one of the coolest cinematics in this entire franchise. It's very impactful. I wish this was the last game in the series. I personally thought it should have ended with Fnaf 3, but they kept going. But I definitely think it should have ended with this because this was a lot more impactful. Everything was finally getting tied together in one little neat bow. But the child in me is still very happy that the game series is still going because this is probably one of my most favorite game franchises ever. Here is the salvage though. This is probably the scariest point in the game besides the actual office levels. And I actually didn't salvage him. I ended up throwing him into the back alley because I didn't want him bugging me because this was a different playthrough. I was actually trying to get the different badges. The next thing is the minigames are very packed full of lore. This minigame is called Fruity Maze. You have to collect fruit and sometimes other things. But this is basically Susie, the girl that possesses Chica. If this would have came out when the FNAF 1 through 3 era came out, this would have been groundbreaking. Before that, you only had to imagine what it would have looked like, the old pizzerias and stuff when they were open and stuff, and how William Afton did his crimes, but this shows a lot. I'm pretty sure this was our first canon look at the Spring Bonnie costume. You can see it in the reflection on the last playthrough of Fruity Maze where it gets really disturbing. You're going to see that here in a minute. This is the second playthrough where you're still collecting something disturbing, but it's not as disturbing as the third one. And here it is. If you couldn't guess what that is, it is a ran over dog. Pretty fucking dark. It also builds onto William Afton's character. He is evil as shit. He ran over a dog and then he used the dog to lure the girl into the back room and, make her possess Chica. That's very fucked up. Yeah, it's still pretty bad what he did, but this just adds another layer to it. And after you complete the minigame, you get some dialogue from William. Yeah, this is probably one of the darkest minigames in this entire franchise, but that's just my opinion. If you think something else takes that spot, let me know in the comments below. But for now, this is what I think it is. Also, I think this line right here is a reference to Follow Me from FNAF 3. The next lore minigame is Midnight Motorist. This one's a little bit more confusing because people cannot make up their mind if the Midnight Motorist is William or not. I feel like it's self-explanatory. Literally, it's a purple car just like we see in FNAF 2's minigames. And the thing that really gets confusing, it's a yellow guy that gets out of the car. But that could be his Spring Bonnie persona. I'm not going to get into it too much because Midnight Motorist is probably one of the biggest mysteries in the entire franchise. But I think it's literally safe to say that this is William that we play as in this minigame. Yeah, I really like FNAF 6 because it's packed full of lore. And that there's literally endless possibilities of what you can do with your pizzeria. Some of the things that make the game a little bit more impactful too is that some of the things that you buy can have consequences. You have a chance of an animatronic sneaking into your pizzeria. What that means is now you have to go against them while juggling your tasks in the night sections. I know I call them the night sections. That makes a little bit more sense to me because that's what all the other Five Nights games did. But it actually takes place during the day when the pizzeria is open. Basically, when something's marked down, all you have to do is restart your game and it'll go away. But here's the number one reason why it is my favorite game in the entire franchise. Not only do I think this has the best gameplay in the entire franchise, but I think it has one of the best endings in the franchise. The ending monologue, all the flashes of the older games. In my own little timeline, I like to think that this is how it ended. Like I said earlier, I do enjoy some of the later games in the franchise, but this is the way to end off the original 5 games with this final one right here. I know I keep saying this word in this video, but this ending is very impactful. It still holds up today in my personal opinion. And I'm sorry to say it for everybody that enjoys the new games, I don't think that anything's ever going to come this close to this ending right here. Everything down to the music is just perfect. It's almost like the FNAF 3 ending, but something about it is just better. I don't feel like the original victims or Afton should have came back after this point, but I mean, that's just how I would have written the story. I would have given it on to new characters and other things. But yes, FNAF 6 is my number one pick for favorite game in the entire Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. I don't think that's ever going to change. Maybe it will, but at this standing point, no. FNAF 6 Pizzeria Simulator is the best game in the entire franchise. Let me know your favorite game in the comments down below. But this is going to come to an end right here. I've been filming this video for the past 4 hours with just like 20-minute breaks. But yeah, Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Happy 11 years to Five Nights at Freddy's, and hopefully we get another 11 years because I'm ready for it. But yeah, guys, this is basically going to be it for now. See you guys in the next one. I'm going to go have a beautiful night's sleep because, damn, this has been a long one. Probably my longest video ever. So, see you guys in the next one. Peace out.